Namaste, Dandava Pranam. We are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam by the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, the Status Quo, Chapter 4, Text 13. Uramaya proktam ajaya nabhye adme nishanaya mamadi sarge gyanam paraman mahima babhasam yatsurayo bhagavatam vadanti. O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. Purport. The explanation of the Supreme Self, as given to Brahma and already explained in the second canto of this great literature, is further clarified herein. The Lord said that the concise form of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained to Brahma, was meant to elucidate his personality. The impersonal explanation of those 4 verses in the second canto is nullified herewith. Sridhar Swami also explains in this connection that the same concise form of the Bhagavatam concerned the pastimes of Lord Krishna and was never meant for impersonal indulgence. Text 14. Ityadrukta paramasya pumshaha pratikshana graha bhajanoham snehotaroma shakalitaksharastam munchan chucha pranjalir abhase. Uddhava said, O Vidura, when I was thus favored at every moment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and addressed by him with great affection, my words failed in tears, and the hairs on my body erupted. After smearing my tears, I, with folded hands, spoke like this. Text 15. Konvishate pada saroja bhajam Sudhor laborestu chatur vaspiha tatapi naham pravanomi bhuman bhavat padam bhoja nishevanochuka. O my Lord, devotees who engage in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet have no difficulty in achieving anything within the realm of the 4 principles of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. But, O Great One, as far as I am concerned, I have performed only to engage in the loving service of your lotus feet. Purport. Those who are associated with the Lord in the Vaikuntha planets achieve all the bodily features of the Lord and appear to be the same as Lord Vishnu. Such liberation is called Sarupya Mukti, which is one of the 5 kinds of liberation. The devotees engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord never accept Sayuja Mukti, or merging in the rays of the Lord called Brahmajyoti. The devotees can achieve not only liberation, but any success in the realm of religiosity, economic development, or sense gratification, up to the standard of the demigods in the heavenly planets. But such a pure devotee as Uddhava refuses to accept all such facilities. A pure devotee wants only simply to engage in the service of the Lord and does not consider his own personal benefit. Text 16. Karmani hasya bhavo bhavasyete Durga Shrayo Tari Bhayat Palayanam Alatmano yat pramada yutashrama svatman rate kidhyati dhir vidam iha. My Lord, even the learned sages become disturbed in their intelligence when they see that your greatness engages in fruitive work, although you are free from all desires, that you take birth, although you are unborn, that you flee out of fear of the enemy and take shelter in a fort, although you are the controller of invincible time, and that you enjoy householder life surrounded by many women, although you enjoy in yourself. Purport. Pure devotees of the Lord are not very much concerned with philosophical speculation in regard to transcendental knowledge of the Lord, nor is it possible to acquire complete knowledge of the Lord. Whatever little knowledge they have about the Lord is sufficient for them, because devotees are simply satisfied in hearing and chanting about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. This gives them all transcendental bliss. But some of the pastimes of the Lord appear contradictory, even to such pure devotees. And thus Uddhava asked the Lord about some of the contradictory incidents in his pastimes. The Lord is described as having nothing to do personally, and is actually so because even in the creation and sustenance of the material world, the Lord has nothing to do. It seems contradictory then to hear that the Lord personally lifts Govardhan Hill for the protection of his unalloyed devotees. The Lord is the supreme Brahman, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, appearing like a man. But Uddhava had doubts whether he could have so many transcendental activities. There is no difference between the personality of Godhead and the impersonal Brahman. How then can the Lord have so many things to do, whereas the impersonal Brahman is stated to have nothing to do, either materially or spiritually? The Lord is ever unborn. How then is he born as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki? He is fearful even to Kala, the supreme fear, and yet the Lord is afraid of fighting Jarasandha and takes shelter in a fort. How can one who is full in himself take pleasure in the association of many women? How can he take wives and, just like a householder, take pleasure in the association of family members, children, relatives, and parents? All these apparently contradictory happenings bewilder even the greatest learned scholars, who, thus bewildered, cannot understand whether inactivity is a fact or whether his activities are only imitations. The solution is that the Lord has nothing to do with anything mundane. All his activities are transcendental. This cannot be understood by the mundane speculators. For the mundane speculators, there is certainly a kind of bewilderment, but for the transcendental devotees, there is nothing astonishing in this. The Brahman conception of the absolute truth is certainly the negation of all mundane activities, but Para-Brahman conception is full with transcendental activities. One who knows the distinctions between the conception of Brahman and the conception of Supreme Brahman is certainly a real transcendentalist. There is no bewilderment for such transcendentalists. The Lord himself also declares in Bhagavad Gita 10.2, even the great sages and demigods can know hardly anything about my activities and transcendental potencies. The right explanation of the Lord's activities is given by Grandfather Bhismadev in Bhagavatam 1.9.16 as follows. Nahyasya karhi chid rajan puman veda vidhitsitam yad vijigyasaya yukta muhyanti kavayopihi. Text 17. Mantresu mamba upahuya yatvam akuntita kanda sadatma bodha Riche prabho mukta iva pramatas tano mano mohaya taiva deva. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus you were sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation, as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered, and this act of yours bewilders me. Uddhava was never actually bewildered, but he says all these contradictions appear to be bewildering. And the whole discussion between Krishna and Uddhava was meant for the benefit of Maitreya, who was sitting nearby. The Lord used to call Uddhava for consultation when the city was attacked by Jarasandha and others, and when he executed great sacrifices as part of his routine royal work as Lord of Dwarka. The Lord has no past, present, and future because he is unhampered by the influence of eternal time, and thus nothing is hidden from him. He is eternally self-intelligent. Therefore, his calling for Uddhava to give him enlightenment is certainly astonishing. Although these actions of the Lord appear to be contradictory, although there's no contradiction in the routine activities of the Lord. Therefore, it is better to see them as they are and not attempt to explain them. Text 18. Gyanam param svatma raha prakasham provacha kasmai bhagavan samagram apikshamam no grahanaya bhartar vadhanjasa yad vrijinam tarema. My Lord, kindly explain to us, if you think us competent to receive it, that transcendental knowledge which gives us enlightenment about yourself and which you explained before to Brahmaji. Purport. A pure devotee like Uddhava has no material affections because he engages constantly in transcendental loving service of the Lord. A devotee feels afflicted without the association of the Lord. Constant remembrance of the Lord's activities keeps the devotee alive, and therefore Uddhava requested that the Lord please enlighten him with the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, as previously instructed to Brahmaji. Text 19. Ityavedita hardaya mayamsa bhagavan para adideshara vindaksha atmana paramam stitim. When I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. Purport. The words paramam stitim are significant in this verse. The Lord's transcendental situation was not even spoken of to Brahma when the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.33 through 36 were explained. This transcendental situation comprises his dealings with devotees engaged in transcendental loving service as exhibited at Dwarka and Vrindavan. When the Lord explained his specific transcendental situation, it was meant for Uddhava only, and therefore Uddhava particularly said, Mahyam, unto me, although the great sage Maitreya was also sitting there. Such a transcendental situation is hardly understood by those whose devotion is mixed with speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. The Lord's activities and confidential love are very rarely disclosed to the general devotees who are attracted by devotion mixed with knowledge and mysticism. Such activities are the inconceivable pastimes of the Lord. Text 20. Saevam aradihita padatritad adhita tatvatma vibhodamarga panamya pado parivritya devam. Vihagato ham virahatratma. I have studied the path of understanding self-knowledge from my spiritual master, the personality of Godhead. And thus, after circumambulating him, I have come to know this place, very much aggrieved due to separation. Sri Uddhava, purport. Sri Uddhava's actual life is the direct symbol of the Chatur Shloki, Bhagavatam enunciated first to Brahmaji by the personality of Godhead. These four very great and important verses from Srimad Bhagavatam are particularly taken out by Mayavad speculators who construe a different purport to suit their impersonal view of monism. Here's the proper answer to such unauthorized speculators. The verses of Srimad Bhagavatam are purely theistic science, understandable by the postgraduate students of Bhagavad Gita. The unauthorized dry speculators are offenders at the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna because they distort the purports of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and to mislead the public and prepare a direct path to the hell known as Anta Tamishra. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16.20, such envious speculators are without knowledge and are surely condemned life after life. They unnecessarily take shelter of Sripad Shankaracharya, but he was not so drastic as to commit an offense at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. According to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sripad Shankaracharya preached the Mayavad philosophy for a particular purpose. Such a philosophy was necessary to defeat the Buddhist philosophy in the non-existence of the spirit soul, but it was never meant for perpetual acceptance. It was an emergency. Thus, Lord Krishna was accepted by Shankaracharya as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this commentation on Bhagavad Gita, since he was a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he did not dare write any commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, because that would have been a direct offense at the lotus feet of the Lord. But later speculators in the name of Mayavad philosophy unnecessarily make their commentary on the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam without any bona fide intent. The monistic dry speculators have no business in Srimad Bhagavatam because this particular Vedic literature is forbidden for them by the great author himself. Srila Vyasadeva has definitely forbidden persons engaged in religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and finally salvation from trying to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, which is not meant for them. Bhagavatam 1.1.2. Sripad Sridhar Swami, the great commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, has definitely forbidden the salvationists or monists to deal in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is not for them. Yet, such unauthorized persons perversely try to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus they commit offenses at the feet of the Lord, which even Sripad Shankaracharya dared not do. Thus, they prepare for their continuation of miserable life. It should be particularly noted herein that Uddhava studied the Chatur Shloki, Bhagavatam, directly from the Lord, who spoke them first to Brahmaji, and thus, and this time the Lord explained more confidentially the self-knowledge mentioned as the Paramam Stitim. Upon learning such self-knowledge of love, Uddhava felt very much aggrieved in feelings of separation from the Lord. Unless one has awakened to the stage of Uddhava, everlastingly feeling separation of the Lord and transcendental love, as exhibited by Lord Chaitanya also, one cannot understand the real import of the four essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not indulge in the unauthorized act of twisting the meaning and thereby putting himself on the dangerous path of offense. Thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue to text 21 on Friday. Before we end, if there are any comments or questions. No. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Dev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai.
Jai.
Glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhakti Veda Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Nishringapali
Jai.
Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur
Jai.
Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Baladev
Jai.
Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan
Jai.
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Ki Jai, Sham
Jai.
Radhakund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi,
Jai.
Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi
Jai.
Ki Jai. Jai
Sripad.
Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Scientific
Jai.
Sankirtan Ki Jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai, Jai Bhakti Linda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari
Hari Hari Bol.
Jai
Sripad
Princeton
Krishna Keshav
Bhaktivedanta
Prabhu ki
Institute,
jai.
Jai Gurudev, Jai Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai, Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Dandavat pranam.
Dhanavat Pranam Uma Devi.
Dandavat pranam Prabhu.
Namaste Linda Dhanavat.
Namaste.